Hello, I am Jennifer Bassett from Thriving Grade 5. In this lesson, we are going to learn about Benjamin Franklin's fire brigade in the 18th century. You just saw some images of firefighters. What should you do if you see a fire? Well, of course, everyone knows to call 911 if you see a fire. You will get an immediate help response if you call 911. You'll have fire trucks, possibly an ambulance, possibly police officers. Today, we take for granted that immediate help response that we get. What if there were no fire stations? What if we didn't have dedicated firefighters? This is what colonial Americans faced in the 18th century. Fire spread quickly because houses were just right next to each other. Most of the time they shared a wall. You can imagine with all of the wood inside of colonial homes, if this home caught on fire, it's going to spread rapidly to all of the homes in that entire block. Homes were flammable. There were a lot of flammable materials. In 1730, there was a fire that started on a ship, and it spread to the wharf where it caught all of the warehouses on fire, and 3 homes also nearby burned to the ground. Benjamin Franklin, wanted to do something to prevent this. He saw what a huge problem fire was in colonial towns. So Benjamin Franklin decided to start the Union Fire Company in 1736. This was an all-volunteer fire department. I chose this image created by Charles Washington Wright in 1850 because I love Franklin's fire hat. This is a secondary source image because it was created by an artist who was not around during Ben Franklin's day. So he had to rely on things he'd heard and read to create this painting. Notice on Franklin's hat, it says Union. That's because Franklin's fire brigade that he started had the name Union, was called the Union Fire Company. Like I said, all of the men that joined this fire company were volunteers. So they had other jobs that they were doing, but they volunteered to help out if there was a fire. This is from, let me move this. This is from Benjamin Franklin. This was written by him in 1735. It was an editorial in the newspaper. Benjamin Franklin had this knack for pretending that he was other people when he would write articles in the newspaper. And that is a whole lesson for another time. Very interesting if you look it up. But Benjamin Franklin wrote this, and it's got his Franklin wit in it. He says, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. That means just a little bit of preventing something tragic like a fire is worth a pound or a great deal of cure. So let's look at this excerpt from Franklin's letter that he wrote in the newspaper. It says, in the first place, as an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, I would advise them to take care how they suffer or allow coals in a full shovel. So imagine hot coals in a shovel to be carried out of one room into another. Colonial homes, they don't have central heat like we have today. They heated their homes with coal or with wood burning fire. So if you're carrying hot coals in a shovel from one room to another, there could always be an accident where you drop the hot coals, the floor catches fire, and poof, your house is on fire, and all of the houses in your neighborhood catch fire too. So he's saying, don't carry these coals into another room or up or downstairs unless in a warming pan shut. So that would just be a pan with a lid on it so that the hot coals couldn't fall out. For scraps of fire may fall into crevices, little, place little openings in the wood, and make no appearance till midnight. So you might not even notice that a hot coal fell out into a hole in the stairs. And then at midnight, the fire has been growing, and now your stairs being in flames. Now your stairs are in flames, and you may be forced, as I once was, to leap out of your windows and hazard your necks. It means risk your neck, risk breaking your neck when you jump out the window to avoid being over roasted. So I don't think Benjamin Franklin actually had to jump out of a window to avoid a fire. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that actually happened. I think he was trying to make a point that unless you are super careful, your house could easily catch on fire just from what you do to heat your house in the winter. So when volunteer firefighters arrived at homes or buildings or barns that were on fire, they would, of course, throw buckets of water. That wasn't extremely effective, as you can imagine. They didn't have the fire hydrants and the high-powered fire hoses that sprayed gallons and gallons of water like we have today. But they did the best they could with the fire buckets that they would use. One really important aspect of firefighting in the 18th century was saving belongings. So they might not be able to save anything, any part of your house structure, but they could save some of your most important belongings. Believe it or not, wood bed frames were usually the most valuable thing that a family had. So firefighters would have carried this type of object here. This is called a bed key. And they would use the bed key to unlock the bed frame, take it apart very quickly, and carry the bed frame out of the burning house to safety. They would also use cloth bags, and they would, as much as they could with the building being on fire, they would walk around and look for items of value, put them in the cloth bags, and carry them off to safety. So, did Franklin's fire company idea work? Yes, it absolutely did. In other colonial cities like New York, Boston, Charleston, fires would destroy entire city blocks. But in Philadelphia, after Franklin's volunteer fire company began, they only lost maybe one or two houses at a time. They were able to get enough volunteers to go and help, carry buckets, pour water on the fire. They were able to get enough men to volunteer to help so that when fires started, they were able to get it out quicker than in those cities where there wasn't an organized fire union. So, did it work? Absolutely. The Philadelphia Fire Department today can trace its roots back to Ben Franklin's Union Fire Company. And Ben Franklin also started a fire insurance program where if you paid your dues, you would be protected if you lost property due to a fire. Kind of like our home insurance programs today. It was called the Philadelphia Contribution Ship, and it's still going today. Isn't that amazing? And of course, they can trace their roots back to Benjamin Franklin and his original insurance program that he started in the 18th century. I hope you have learned a lot about 18th century firefighting and Benjamin Franklin's fire brigade. I hope you enjoy the rest of your lesson.